SIG SAUER P226 Extreme. Extreme fun, that is. This is the SIG SAUER P226 Extreme. SIG SAUER P226 is available in many varieties, almost 31 flavors, but I particularly chose the Extreme because it had many, if not all, of the qualities and features that I was looking for in a SIG P226. So with all the great guns out there available today, why would you spend nearly 2 times the money for a SIG? Well, there's many different reasons, and those reasons are going to vary from person to person, and I'm sure there are no shortage of people who say, well, I just plain wouldn't. But some of the reasons might be battle-proven reliability. The SIG SAUER P226 has been in service, getting hard duty for a number of years. How about quality materials and workmanship? With a nitrite-coated stainless steel slide and an anodized all-aluminum frame, when you pick up a P226, it feels like quality. It feels sturdy. It feels substantial. So what about durability? Obviously, those materials and workmanship have a lot to do with the durability. But so does the design, the craftsmanship, you know, the quality of manufacturing that goes into the SIG has a lot to do with its durability. The relevance of the technology. And here's one other reason you might not be unwilling to pay a premium price for a premium pistol, and that is to pass it down. You know, this truly becomes a family heirloom, passed from father to son, from grandfather to grandson, and I'll bet in some cases from great-grandfather to great-grandson. Imagine someday a young man taking a pistol out of his range bag, pointing it down range, taking a first shot at a target, making a great hit in the 10 ring, smile on his face, and looking at the guy next to him and say, this pistol used to belong to my great-grandfather. This is that kind of gun. The SIG SAUER P226 Extreme. I gave up cigarettes a year ago, but every once in a while, I just gotta smoke a cig. Yeah, baby. All right. We tore it up pretty good. So my experience so far with the P226, after 1,000 rounds, I've put just over 1,000 rounds now through this gun, 1,050 to be exact. Yes, I'm that guy who keeps track. I have a spreadsheet. What, you don't? But after 1,000 rounds through the SIG P226, which, by the way, is about the equivalent of a world champion athlete doing their pregame warm-ups, you know? So that's nothing to a SIG. But still, 1,000 rounds is a good, healthy break-in. It's a good, thorough evaluation. It definitely is, after 1,000 rounds, you're definitely in a position to have opinions about the gun and to have observations and draw some conclusions. So that's where I am with it at 1,000 rounds. So during my first 1,000 rounds, here's some of my general experience items. First of all, first and foremost, This gun has had no failures, none, not one, and I have tried to generate failures. I have fed ammunition into this pistol that had already failed in other pistols. It either failed to feed properly, or it failed to chamber properly, or it wouldn't even fire, you know, things of that nature. So I have fed many rounds deliberately into this SIG that failed in other pistols. It fired every one of them. It fed every one of them. It ejected every one of them flawlessly. How about accuracy? This pistol is for, you know, for a handgun of this size in a, you know, duty gun, it's as accurate as I will ever need it to be. This gun is definitely more accurate than I'm capable of shooting it. There's no doubt about that. In fact, just recently, while I was out playing with a sister SIG Sauer product, I pulled the P226 out of the bag since I was doing some rifle sight-ins at 50 yards. I said, you know, I wonder what this P226 would do at 50 yards. Let's take a look. Let's try the SIG Sauer P226 Extreme at 50 yards. That seems pretty extreme to me, because I got to tell you, I'm not a good long-distance shooter, especially with not even my best batch of ammo. These are hand loads, and like I say, not even my best batch. Let's see how accurate P226 is at 50 yards. I'm just shooting at a standard regulation IDPA target with no other designations to it, so I'm just aiming for center. Okay, that was a 10-shot group. Let's go see what it looks like. Okay, literally. Listen, when I said let's go see what it looks like, I mean let's go see what it looks like. I'm taking you with me. I'm not going to try and cheat later. I really need to start bringing a golf cart with me to the range. All this walking, too much like exercise. Okay, 50 yards. How'd we do? Well, first of all, we should have 10, so let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so none of them missed paper. And that one cut the line. So I'm down 2. So a 10-shot string at 50 yards, down 2. I'll take that every time. Yeah, speaking of accuracy, the P226 is dead accurate. Definitely more accurate than I'm ever going to be able to shoot it. I mean, it's I will always be the weakest link in the accuracy of this pistol unless I get a hold of some really bad ammunition. But this target right here is 55 rounds, and you see every hit right there. I'm not hiding any underneath the pistol. So that's it. That's 55 rounds that went into that, and that is at about 10 yards. How about fun? How about plain old-fashioned fun? This gun is just really fun to shoot. I mean, when I'm shooting this particular pistol, the P226, I'm measuring my range time in miles per hour. It is just, it's great fun to shoot. You almost can't bring enough ammo with you to the range. So, you know, maybe that's a caution. If I'm going to list down things, I'm going to list negative things about the gun. Maybe one of them is it's going to cost you a fortune in ammo because you're going to shoot it so much because it is so fun to shoot. So maybe that's the downside. Don't mention that to your spouse when you go out shopping. So as I had mentioned, and if you've ever browsed SIG Sauer's website or catalog, you know that the P226 is available in a large variety of configurations. And I chose the P226 Extreme for my first P226, and I'm extremely happy that I did. I really like it. It came with features that, according to SIG, you know, in their literature about this particular variant, they said that they took the common upgrades that most P226 owners wanted or performed on their pistols and incorporated them into this one out of the box. And I think that's a pretty fair assessment. It's not tricked out, you know, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles and everything you can do to a SIG, but it's absolutely not a plain Jane either. And so I think they did take what they felt most owners did, you know, as a must-have type of upgrade and put those on the gun. And they did a couple things just to make it nice, you know, to make it marketable, like the G10 grips, which are just absolutely awesome. So what are the key features to me? Well, it starts with the beauty, I think, of the design and function of the gun. You know, right off the bat, I just admire the engineering of the pistol, the great looks of it, the feel of quality when you pick it up and hold it, the fun of shooting it. So that probably is at the top of the list, and I know that's not real specific. SRT, the short reset trigger. Short reset trigger is one of the aforementioned accessory or upgrade items that SIG incorporated into the Extreme out of the box. And to me, the short reset trigger is, it really is a must-have. I consider it a must-have. Not everybody likes it. There are some people who don't care for it as much as they do for the regular stock trigger, and that's cool. I like it a lot. I like the short reset trigger. I like how crisp it is. I like the, you know, obviously the short reset, and it's a very tactile short reset, and I demonstrated that in my unboxing. The Hogue G10 grips, yeah, they're maybe 60% aesthetics and 40% function, but I'll tell you what, on both counts, they're a hit. They look fantastic. I mean, look at these grips. They're just gorgeous, you know. And the G10 material is extremely durable. It's going to last, you know, it's going to outlive me. The way they've, I don't know exactly how they produce these. You know, I don't know if they're milled or molded or a combination. But the texture in this, I mean, this is sort of like, you know, it's like dinosaur scale on the one hand, but it's very grippy and almost abrasive. But at the same time, when you put your hand around it, it's extremely comfortable. So it's a beautiful balance of very good grip and good long-term comfort. I mean, you can shoot this gun all day long and never get uncomfortable with that grip. Okay, another feature for me that was important was the SIG Light night sights. First of all, just as a standard 3-dot configuration, they're very good. It's, you know, combat style 3-dot sight picture, very easy to acquire, good sized sights. You know, they did a nice job with the front post and the rear notch. You know, there's not a whole lot of airspace, but there's, you know, a little bit so that it's not, you know, you don't lose that front sight with the smallest movement. So they did a good job there. And then in the dark, these things rock. the night sights just glow beautifully, as good as any I've seen. And to me, that's a must-have, you know, on a pistol like this. Another thing about the sights that I'm a big fan of is that the rear sight, and let's zoom in here a little bit, the rear sight is also made to serve very well if you had to do an emergency slide rack against a holster or a belt or, you know, whatever, you know, tabletop with a one-handed operation. This is made to handle that extremely well. I mean, look, I'm just pulling on it with my finger. One of the other things that I'm a huge fan of on the P226 is the location of the slide lock lever. That's something that, you know, I don't hear it praised enough, but to me that's really nice, because that is just in a beautiful spot so that I don't have to alter my grip to lock that slide open, and I don't have to alter my grip to swipe it down. Now, by the way, the reason I'm not going to demonstrate that is because that's actually bad for your pistol. I see a lot of people doing that, and it's like fingernails on a blackboard to me. Dry fire is not going to hurt your gun. What's going to hurt your gun is letting that slide snap shut on an empty chamber. So if you're going to do that, use snap caps or something. So I'm not going to demonstrate that for you. But so that was my little impromptu nanny lecture. But the location of that is just absolutely gorgeous. That's a huge, huge like from me. The decocker, you know, I really, from a functional standpoint, could kind of take it or leave it, but I've learned to really like it. It's nice to be able to render your pistol safe, you know, from a cock perspective, and, you know, from a drop safety perspective, by simply using a lever rather than manipulating the hammer manually. So a few just general observations. You know, I know everybody and their brother has done a review on the P226, and, you know, I even debated whether to throw mine into the ring, but just a couple general observations from me. Number one, the grip of the P226 is sort of like a rounded 2x4. You know, if you took a 2x4 and sort of sanded one edge of it to make it kind of round, that's sort of how the P226 first feels to you. Oddly enough, it's extremely comfortable and easy to shoot, having said that. And again, I don't have giant meat hook hands, so, you know, that was one of my concerns. Am I really going to like the ergonomics of the pistol because of the size, you know, the double stack grip? But it is actually extremely comfortable. And one advantage to the more wide or the wider grip is that, you know, from a physics perspective, it spreads out the energy over a wider distance, so any felt recoil that does translate back into your hand is doing so over a wider area. Along similar lines, from a shootability perspective, you know, I was a little concerned at first that the high bore axis was going to really translate a lot of muzzle flip and felt recoil, and there is certainly some, and the P226 does have a very high bore axis. Let's drop that hammer there and take a look. I mean, the top of my hand is here, right under that grip tang, and look how high the hammer is comparatively. You know, when you compare that to a lot of modern pistols, and of course, you know, Glock probably being the one that first comes to mind, has an extremely low bore axis. Look how high that is. You're way up here. You're like, you know, 1.25 inches over the web of your hand. And yes, there is muzzle flip, but it's not really that bad. It's not what you would anticipate, at least not in the 9mm. That added muzzle flip does take you a little bit longer to regain your sight picture, but the sights do drop nicely right back down. You know, so the gun you know, there's a little bit of snap in the muzzle because of the bore axis, but it does come back down right on target. Very simple field strip and cleaning. That's very important. I like that. You know, there's some pistols out there that are really nice pistols in so many other ways, except they are a bear just to do a common field strip. I mean, field stripping this pistol is incredibly easy, straightforward, and simple. I just did it while I was saying that, you know. So huge kudos to simplicity for field strip. And reassembly. The Extreme SIG Sauer P226 Extreme model also came equipped with the front cocking serrations, or press check serrations if you prefer, and that allows you to do a quick press check if you want to verify whether or not the pistol is loaded. I like them. You know, they're aesthetically pleasing, and mostly for me, front cocking serrations mostly are about aesthetics. I don't really use them that much. I don't do a whole lot of press checks, and I'm not, you know, I'm very rarely going to use them to actually cock the gun. I will occasionally manipulate the slide this way if I'm demonstrating to someone, you know, if I'm showing someone, because that way my hand is not obscuring the chamber and so on. So I'll use them for that. So I do like to have a gun with a good set of front cocking serrations for that purpose. A couple things that are observations, certainly not complaints by any means, but there is some nice cut-in front serrations on the front strap, and again, full aluminum, anodized aluminum frame. And we have some nice serrations here. It's not actual checkering. It's actually just horizontal serrations. It does a pretty good job. You know, it keeps your grip pretty well. I haven't got any complaints with it, but I can't help but wonder if a full checkering, you know, would be even nicer. And also, there's similar front serrations on the front of the trigger guard. So for those of you who still like to watch your reruns of Miami Vice on VHS, you'll appreciate that. One of the things you have to talk about if you're talking about the SIG P226 is the double action, single action trigger versus the double action only or other consistent trigger pulls on many of the other new pistols, such as, you know, the Glocks and the Springfield Armories and so on. Some people decidedly do not like the double action, single action. I don't have a real problem with it because I've had double action, single action going way back to the Smith & Wesson Model 39 days in the early 80s. So I'm accustomed to that design and that type of trigger. I do typically shoot the P226 in single action. You know, I generally will rack the slide and then start shooting it from single action. I do occasionally shoot it double action, and yes, it's a heavier pull, you know, but it's a nice smooth pull. It's a very good double action trigger, and I don't really have any issues with it. Basically, you know, it really all comes down to personal preferences, but there's really kind of, you know, the simple downside and upside to me with a double action, single action. The downside, obviously, is you have two different trigger pulls, so you have to train differently, especially if you're going to train to use that double action first trigger pull. And then, you know, really the upside, though, to me, is that you do have second strike, third strike, fourth strike capability. So if you have a round that doesn't fire because you've got a hard primer, or, you know, whatever other, you know, the case may be, you're able to continue to pull that trigger and continue to hit the firing pin against that round, which you're unable to do with most other striker fired and double action only type pistols. One word of advice, if I may, while I've got your attention here. The SIG SAUER P226 will run and run and run, and like I've already said, it shoots everything. It shoots everything you feed it. But the one thing you do want to make sure you do is keep this thing well lubricated. This is, you know, you've got two different types of metal on metal, so that's always going to be an extra challenge, because it's impossible to have two different types of metal working together and have them be of equal hardness or of equal friction and things of that nature. So you've got aluminum against stainless steel riding on your slides. So I prefer to use grease on my slides. I really do that in all my guns. My rule of thumb when I'm lubricating any of my guns is, if it rubs, grease it. If it moves, oil it. So any of the friction points where you have rubbing, and obviously your slides, you know, barrel lugs, things like that, I tend to grease. But keep it well lubricated. It likes to run a little wet, and it will just run and run and run.